The Corps will be calling out their altitude as they're making their way down, as well as when the drogue parachutes deploy and the main parachutes deploy. And then as they get closer and closer to Earth, just keeping the crew updated with how close they are before splashdown so that they can expect that splashdown.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Those are the things that crew that you're seeing there on the left side of your screen are following along with their lead up to these next 4 minutes before.
And there you can see on your screen, the seats are rotating for the crew. This prepares them for that splashdown. So they do
brace for drogue window.
Rotate to 26 degrees, which we just saw there, to keep the crew within acceptable G limits for entry and landing. And
excellent view.
Great view. Drogue parachutes are deployed. View looking forward.
Drogue descent rate nominal.
Descent rate nominal, copy.
Again, we're going to hear a lot of comms throughout this next 3 minutes here. This is looking forward on the Dragon spacecraft up at the chutes. Those drogue parachutes are fully deployed now, so we do expect those main parachutes to deploy here shortly.
If you're just joining us, we have now confirmed that the AX-4 crew on their return home is roughly 2.5 minutes out from splashdown, and our main chutes have deployed.
Main chute descent rate nominal.
Copy. Main chute descent rate nominal, 1,000 meters for Dragon.
We copy 1,000 meters.
Great visual confirmation, as well as those comms that the 4 main parachutes have deployed. Again, we are going to be slowing down the vehicle from 350 miles per hour all the way down to just about 15, 16 miles per hour by the time that the vehicle touches down and splashes down into the ocean.
Exactly right. You mentioned these beautiful visual confirmations that we're getting. An important aspect of today's specific splashdown is that it's occurring at night.
That's Dragon 800.
Copy, 800 meters.
Commander Peggy Whitson confirming the spacecraft's altitude as it's making its descent into the Pacific Ocean just off the coast of San Diego in Southern California.
Yes, love that it's coming off the coast of my hometown.
600 meters.
600 meters.
And at 600 meters, we're just under a minute before that expected splashdown. The landing in water is a lot simpler and more reliable. Provides a little bit of margin against unlikely parachute issues. We did have to learn how to make Dragon waterproof as we are splashing down into the ocean. But
SpaceX copies 400 meters. Reminder to brace for splashdown.
Oh, that's a pretty cool view.
Yeah. That's right. Maintaining the vehicle signature through things like cloud lighter and any kind of atmospheric disturbance allows us to maintain visual contact with the vehicle as it's making its final descent for its water landing.
And it's a little foggy, as you can see there.
Yeah, Pacific fog is rolling in.
We've got some very bright lights as Dragon, you can see the ocean there. Dragon is about to touch down in just a few seconds here.
And working their way towards the vehicle are the SpaceX and Axiom support teams that will be present for the next phase of our splashdown coverage today. At this point, we'll be waiting for confirmation of the crews safe landing, and then we'll move into the phases of this mission, which are really, let's recover the vehicle, let's recover the crew, let's make our assessments, and at that point we'll be covering.
And we have splashdown of the AX-4 crew back on planet Earth.
Welcome home.
SpaceX Dragon splashdown. We are in Stable 1.
SpaceX copies splashdown in Stable 1. On behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
And thanks for the great ride and the safe trip, and Grace is happy to be back.
We are happy to have you back home safely as well.
Dragon copies. We'll be waiting.
And with that call from Core to Commander Peggy Whitson, you can see now the fast boat making the two fast boats rather making an approach to the Dragon that you see in the middle of your screen with that flashing green beacon. Now, as we mentioned, Axiom Space's Chief Medical Officer is on the main recovery ship Shannon and is ready to put eyes on this crew for the first time since they departed quarantine together. And our medical teams will be with them every step of the way home.
It is nighttime, so we do have this infrared camera to help us see a little bit more clearly. That's the Dragon spacecraft in the middle of your screen there.
These SpaceX fast boats are now making initial contact with the Axiom 4, with the Dragon spacecraft, excuse me.
You can also see the red and green lights on Dragon, just similar to starboard and port on a ship. We have that for nights like this where it's a little bit harder to see the orientation of the vehicle, so those red and green lights help us understand which side of the vehicle and orientation that we are approaching.
5 minutes until capsule lift. We have SpaceX flight surgeon standing by. Please confirm crew are ready for post-splashdown PMC.
Dragon copies so, and we are ready for post-PMC.
Copy that, Dragon. The next call you hear will be from flight surgeon on Dragon to ground privatized.
And you heard those comms. The team is going to do some medical checks. They are going to do that on a private net. And that's what those comms were, confirming that they're switching the nets that they will be communicating on. And this is just to make sure that the crew is feeling okay.
Exactly right.
Through all those dynamic events. Yep. While for us watching Dragon re-enter the Earth's atmosphere from afar, there's a lot going on in that spacecraft there with the crew. So just making sure that the crew is feeling good and checking in with how they're doing.
Exactly. It's an important touch point for kind of reaching a key milestone on the return trip home. As just mentioned, it's a very dynamic phase of flight. And those private medical conferences or PMCs with a SpaceX flight surgeon really allow ground teams to be able to make an initial assessment of crew while the team is also, the ground teams outside are continuing to work that rigging. They mentioned it take about 25 minutes for crew to rig and then hoist the Dragon spacecraft into the recovery vessel. So while those operations are happening, crew will also be talking with ground medical personnel just to get an understanding of, hey, how's everybody doing? How are you looking forward to it?
Yeah. And they did confirm that the vehicle was safe to approach. They did some hypergol checks. And they also checked the thrusters that did not fire to make sure that there are no leaks from those thrusters. We do have Super Dracos on the vehicle in case of an abort emergency during ascent. We did not need those thrusters on this mission. And again, they are only used for the ascent portion, but we do want to make sure that throughout the mission, as the Dragon spacecraft was docked to the International Space Station for 18 days, that everything is still good and safe again, to complete these final recovery operations.
Pleasure of naming Grace. And now that it's gone through its first mission and landed back safely in the Pacific Ocean, you can see exactly what the spacecraft goes through on its return home, but very much a sign of a successful mission.
Yeah, I love the tradition that the first crew that flies in the spacecraft get to name the spacecraft. And Peggy Whitson had some great words on why they named the spacecraft Grace,
Yeah.
which I think is amazing. And we've got a great fleet of Dragon spacecraft. And speaking of Commander Peggy Whitson, she's actually our third frequent flyer.
Yeah.
Our first frequent flyer was Michael Lopez Alegria from Axiom Space.
Yeah.
Second being Jared Isaacman when he flew on the Polaris Dawn mission. And now Peggy Whitson flying for a second time on a Dragon spacecraft. At SpaceX, we're trying to make these vehicles reusable, just like aircraft when you fly and fly over again multiple times a day. And we're getting closer and closer to that with the same crew members flying again, which is awesome.
And it's important to note, right, that kind of mission-to-mission lineage, right, allows crew members like Peggy Whitson, like Michael Lopez Alegria, to better help inform the next crews that are coming with them, right? The more familiarity that you get with the vehicle, the better equipped you are on your mission. And I, as a personal Peggy super fan, I cannot imagine a more fitting astronaut to be able to give a name to a new vehicle. I love the messaging behind why they chose to name it Grace. And to your point, Jesse, about the frequent flyers, I loved that during launch we could see I don't know if it's a new tradition potentially, but we got to see some boarding passes that SpaceX provided to the AX4 crew, and because of her frequent flyer status, Peggy Whitson got a gold boarding pass, and I absolutely adore that she was able to have that distinction.
Yes, just add it to her resume.
Yeah, you can add it to the resume. SpaceX frequent flyer.
Yeah, I love the boarding passes. Again, always trying to make it as common as aircraft, planes that we fly on every single day.
Exactly.
And we're still just in the beginning, but I feel like we've made a lot of progress in the last 5 years, and we still have a lot of new things, new missions, and improvements that we want to make to, future spacecraft and launch vehicles. So I'm excited for the future. I really do believe that we could get to aircraft, plane, regular flight, multiple flights a day within our future.
I think we can. And human spaceflight is it's a team sport, and it is something that you are always learning from. No matter how commonplace any of these missions get, right? There is always the amount of training that you put into it to execute that plan, train, fly mentality, and being able to perform these missions, being able to say that Peggy has flown on multiple Dragon spacecraft at this point, kind of highlight that every time she's going to still go through the same training that she did for the last mission, that all these crew members, that all of the ground support personnel are going to be ready to support missions like these from even well before crew is on the launch pad, all the way through splashdown, pulling them onto the recovery vessel here for the Dragon spacecraft. And you can see on your screen both the fast boat and the recovery vessel Shannon making approach to Grace, our Dragon spacecraft.
There you could see what we call the Dragon nest. When the spacecraft is lifted up out of the water, it's going to seat into that ring that you see there at the end of the recovery vessel there. And once the spacecraft is nestled into the nest, it'll translate to
Those of you just tuning in, the AX4 crew splashed down off the coast of Southern California a little under 30 minutes ago. And we are now in the
Dragon SpaceX, rigging is complete. Stand by for capsule lift.
Dragon copies.
Dragon SpaceX, capsule lift in progress, brace.
All right, good verbal confirmations there and visual confirmations that we're getting a successful lift.
Dragon copies.
Again, those comms, crew can't see what's happening outside
Right.
of the spacecraft, so letting the crew know what's happening so they understand, the vehicle moving,
Exactly.
what those different feelings are with the spacecraft moving around.
Trying to give crew some level of situational awareness of where they are and where they're going next. So Dragon will remain in the nest during the crew extraction and for the journey back into port. The spacecraft is currently was just lifted, as you saw, and set on the nest. And from here, it'll be centered and oriented. And then from there, Dragon will be translated into the hangar underneath the helipad aboard the ship so that we can then open the hatch. And once open, a SpaceX medical doctor will be the first one in to check on the crew to see if they are ready to egress out of the vehicle. And as we noted earlier, Axiom medical teams are also on the recovery vessel working in tandem with SpaceX staff to assess and assist the crew.
The astronauts will egress, or what we call exit, from Dragon's side hatch, pending spacecraft orientation in the water. Before opening the hatch, the spacecraft's cabin pressure must be equalized with the outside environment. Now, once the hatch is opened, that will be the Axiom 4 crew's first breath of fresh air since boarding Falcon 9 at the start of their mission on June 25th.
And that will be an exciting moment for the crew, I know. But for the crew and also for the ground crews, getting that first confirmation of your crew exiting the spacecraft, getting good medical checks, and then coming out and giving a thumbs up is something everybody wants to be able to see, and we'll be able to see it soon.
Yeah. And it looks like the spacecraft is nestled into the nest.
Dragon SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery ship. Apology for the delayed call earlier. We are still working to transition the forward link. Recovery personnel are completing their final checks, and I will let you know when we are ready for translation across the deck to the egress platform.
Now, they are de-rigging the spacecraft, but they're also doing some final sniff or leak checks and then covering the thruster locations prior to opening that hatch. Let's just make sure that the vehicle is more than safe for the crew members to exit the vehicle. Again, if you're just now joining us, the Dragon spacecraft has been lifted onto the recovery vessel Shannon. Now the recovery crew is safing the vehicle. They're putting some covers on the thrusters of the vehicle just to ensure, now that the spacecraft is no longer in operation, we don't need those thrusters. They did some sniff checks before they put some covers on it.
SpaceX, comm check.
We have you loud and clear in Dragon.
Copy that, Dragon. We have you the same. Welcome aboard the recovery ship. We are working to troubleshoot the forward link transition. Stand by for translation across the deck. I'll let you know when we're ready for that.
Okay, copy.
The crew is preparing for translation. This is where that Dragon nest is going to move the spacecraft towards the deck, and that deck is going to meet the bottom of the Dragon hatch, and that'll enable the crew to egress or exit the Dragon spacecraft onto a platform on the recovery vessel. And again, the recovery crew looks like they may have finished safing the vehicle in preparation for that translation.
As you mentioned, Jesse, that hatch that you see right in the center of the spacecraft, when we see crew egress from that, SpaceX medical personnel will be there to assess crew and assist them along with other ground support crew out of the spacecraft. And at that point, that will be our first time being able to see the AX-4 crew since their liftoff to the International Space Station on June 25th. The hatch is open, and ground crews are making first contact with the Axiom 4 crew.
And you see that square-looking tool. That's just a protector for the hatch seal for while the crew egresses. This is a reusable vehicle, so we are protecting both the crew as well as the spacecraft, making sure there's no damage that happens and that the crew doesn't bump their head on anything on the spacecraft. Looks like they just removed the footrests. Gives the crew some space to get out of their seats while they are exiting the vehicle.
Now getting some great internal views of the AX-4 crew and their spacecraft.
I already saw some big smiles as people we've all been saying.
Crew looking to make the first crew members looking to make their egress from the spacecraft along that slide.
Sliding out.
And there she is. We see Commander Peggy Whitson, all smiles, exiting the spacecraft Grace. That is a beautiful sight. Peggy Whitson, the AX-4 commander, is home, having logged 695 days in space on 5 flights. She is the 7th on the all-time list for most days in space by a human. It's an incredible feat.
Legendary.
Which I think she is for this particular crew. We'll see another big smile coming out of the Dragon spacecraft in a moment.
And we've got our pilot, Shubhanshu Shukla, as our second crew member exiting the spacecraft. And some big smiles, as you said. India reached a major milestone for the nation's space exploration goals. AX-4 pilot Shubhanshu Shukla became the first astronaut to fly.
Member now egressing the vehicle. And there is Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski of Poland. Sław is all smiles for this, which I love to see. Now, Poland's participation in the AX-4 mission through the Ignis program marked a pivotal step in the country's growing role in space exploration. Astronaut Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski, flying in partnership with the European Space Agency, led a research agenda focused on some of the most pressing challenges in human spaceflight: mental health, artificial intelligence, and radiation monitoring. These areas are critical not only for ensuring astronaut well-being.
And last but not least, mission specialist Tibor Kapu. Hungary marked a significant milestone in its space ambitions with the AX-4 mission as astronaut Tibor Kapu became the first Hungarian to reach the International Space Station, and all smiles from him there. His participation under the banner of the Hunor Hungarian to Orbit program represents Hungary's commitment to advancing its role in international space exploration. This mission signifies the country's return to human spaceflight after decades and highlights its strategic investment in science, technology, and innovation.
And Jesse, it was wonderful seeing Tibor's smiles and waves and high fives. You knew how important this mission was to the crew as they were prepping for it and throughout the mission, and seeing them be able to egress with the same smiles that they went into the capsule with, or into the spacecraft with,